Did I call that one or not? Look, I prepped you beforehand, okay? So your blood pressure, you have no excuse. Your blood pressure should not be up here right now. I told you what it was going to be. An angry, divisive, red meat speech designed for the Democrat base, not for the middle or independents or anything like that. Instead of getting mad, that should put a smile on your face. What that was one long plea from Joe Biden to his base saying, please don't leave me. Joining me now to talk about that, a couple friends of mine, host of the Tudor Dixon podcast. You probably already guessed who hosts that one, so I guess I don't have to say her name. And Kira Davis, author of the book Drawing Lines. Okay, Tudor, let's begin with you. I'm a huge partisan. I know you two are shocked by that, but I'm a massive partisan. I don't really pretend otherwise. Seemed pretty nasty and divisive to me, but you tell me what you saw, Tudor.
Well, we knew it would be angry because he doesn't speak in tones of joy anymore. It's always angry. It's that squinty look. It's the puckered lips, the pointing finger. That's what we expected to get from Joe Biden. But he also is like a wounded animal. He knows he's in trouble. You could tell that in this speech. He started with Ukraine and was going after everybody. We've got to put this money out there. You're not doing it. He went to January 6th. He immediately got into abortion. By the time he hit 30 minutes, he started to mix words up. He started to say things incorrectly. You could see Kamala Harris' face. It was like, oh gosh, he's melting down. We're losing him. And the anger got worse, and the yelling and the pointing. And then he starts offering up goods. It's like Oprah's favorite things, and you're going to get $400 for your mortgage. Like, thanks. And you're going to get free credit cards, and you are going to get free preschool. And it's like this desperate attempt. I've got to buy your vote. I know I'm so far behind. I know you like the guy who actually made your life better. So I've got to offer you things in hopes that you look, oh, shiny thing. I'll go vote for you, Joe. We saw a desperate attempt to get voters on his side.
Kira, I don't disagree with any of that, but one thing I have learned is people like their handouts. People like identity politics. I may dislike it. You may like it. People love, you're a woman, you're oppressed, you're this. And people love government checks, and they love to be told they're special victims. Doesn't this stuff work?
I don't know if it's working or not. Let's just keep in mind what the State of the Union speech is. At this point, it's just a campaign speech. And so what we saw was Biden campaigning. I watched this with my 16-year-old daughter tonight, and it helped me to see it in almost a new way because I was explaining things to her as we went along, and she was saying, why are they standing up to applaud this? Or why is the president talking about this right now? And I had the chance to explain, all of this it's easier to watch this if you understand that this is just a campaign speech. And the president doesn't have a really good record to run on. And so he has to run on the things that he thinks people want to hear, and he has to check the boxes. So you had student loans, you had the Middle East, you had minimum wage, you had the PRO Act shoved in there, and all of those other sort of buzzwords, fair share, all those things have to come up. And so to me, it was the speech I exactly expected. But it was obviously all lies. And the only positive things, the only demands he had were simply demands to return us to Trump policies. By the way, I thought it was really interesting that he made the choice not to mention Trump by name tonight, as if it made a single bit of difference. We all know who you're talking about. You know who you're talking about. Trump for sure knows who you're talking about because he was over on Truth Social posting his responses the whole night. So I don't know that that's a tactic that's going to play at all. If anything, ironically, it makes Trump bigger in our minds because now we're all thinking about him, not just hearing him say the word.
Again, with Tudor Dixon and Kira Davis here, we will be carrying the GOP response whenever it pops up. We don't know yet, so you don't have to change the channel on that. Whenever that comes, we'll shut up and we'll toss to the GOP response. Okay, Tudor, one thing I thought was really interesting was the placement of the Ukraine stuff. In these speeches, like in most things, you want to lead with your best or most important issue. These people poll test everything, Tudor. You know how these political monsters work. There's no way they think Ukraine is in the top of any American's mind, not the dirty commie scum and not the normal people. So what does he get from leading with that?
Well, you have to remember that this is a party that won and tried to destroy a presidency based on scaring people over Russia. So this is his opportunity to immediately put this scary, bad Russia out there. We have to protect the world from Russia and kind of connect in people's minds. Russia is bad. And remember, we tried to tell you that President Trump was involved with Russia. That was his key there, was to try to make you realize that the boogeyman is back. I'm the guy that's going to fight the boogeyman. He's not going to fight the boogeyman. We've got to make sure we keep funding Ukraine. And all of my Republican friends out here are saying we don't want to do that unless we protect our border. Now, I thought that was interesting. Didn't get to the border much. You saw that moment where Marjorie Taylor Greene yelled out Laken Riley's name. A key moment in this speech, because he reaches down and he grabs the button that I believe it says say her name or Biden's border crisis, and he calls her Lincoln Riley. And then he says, yes, Lincoln Riley, I feel bad for her parents, but 1,000 people aren't being killed every day. You couldn't even understand where he was going with this. It was disrespectful. It was worse than not saying it at all, in my opinion. People were saying, will he talk about her? Will he not? He has never talked to her parents. He's never spoken to them or tried to call them. And now he's, in my opinion, disrespected not only them, but Laken's memory.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It got uncomfortable when he said her name wrong. It was terrible. Kira, the shouting. The Tudor talked about it in the beginning. Honestly, I took it because I assume he's on a gigantic cocktail of meds that would kill Keith Richards to get him through a speech like that at this time of night. I took it as just honestly too many amphetamines. That's how I took it. I get that way when I have too much coffee and haven't slept and I snap at my wife. You know, your body's going crazy. But sometimes angry lands well. Do you think his angry landed well?
No, I honestly, I'll have to see, the pollings and the reports as the night goes on and through tomorrow. But I don't think anything he said landed well. And I think just the only people watching this tonight were our political nerds like you and I, and people whose job it is to pay attention to this stuff. But at the end of the day, we're all living the reality of Biden's America. So no, nothing he said landed, because as concerned as people are about having healthy drinking water, I'm sorry, but the number one issue on Americans' minds is not the lead pipes that the Biden administration keeps trying to bring up, as if they've done anything to solve the issue. The whole idea is to distract. And at the beginning of the night, we saw Biden come in. I'm with you, Jesse. Like, definitely hopped up on methamphetamines for sure, some kind of amphetamines. Popped up. Looking bright-eyed. He actually had like a little skip to his step, came in, he was talking to people, and I was like, okay, clearly the meds have kicked in, but you can see the decline as the speech goes on, and it's concerning. Jesse, I can't remember ever once watching a State of the Union and worrying about whether or not the president could make it through. I worried if it was too long or too short, or if there was going to be too many lines or too many applause lines. Never had to worry about a president getting through. And the reason why he started out yelling, but it was a joyous yelling, it was an oratory yelling. But as he declined through the night, as you and Tudor pointed out, his cognitive abilities were declining. And what happens when your cognitive abilities begin to go, you do become aggressive. That's actually part of the aging process. And so that changed from the joyfulness of the high, I guess, to aggression in the end. And typically that's also what Democrats do when they don't have anything of substance to say. They just get really angry, and then you're supposed to be like, yeah, they're saying something. So that's the Joe Biden we saw at the end. He got out just in the nick of time. Like, I was seriously worried for his ability to walk out of there on his own.
Tudor, how do you do with abortion? Obviously, this is an issue that they believe is going to turn out their voters. It has proven to turn out their voters, especially liberal white women, single liberal white women. They love abortion more than they love breathing. This is something that turns out Democrat voters. So Joe Biden got up there tonight. I may hate it, but he talked lovingly about abortion. Did it work? Does that psychopath sitting at home with their 9 cats popping her anti-anxiety meds, did she get excited when she watched him speak tonight?
It works. I mean, it's already been proven that it works, because the women in the United States have voted in many states and said they want abortion. And so it was beyond that. He talked about it as freedom, and he gave us the clues of what he's going to talk about for the rest of the campaign. And abortion is top on their list. In fact, if you're following what Democrats are saying in news articles across the country, even on some of their back channels, they're like, this is our moment. And they can say all they want. They're disappointed in the Supreme Court. They've never loved the Supreme Court more than when they put out the Dobbs decision. That was their golden moment. They said, we are going to seize on this, and we are going to make sure every woman in America thinks she doesn't have health care anymore. He brought out Kate Cox. He talked about Texas. He said this woman could have been infertile. She could have died because of this. And we're going to make sure that this never happens again. He brought up IVF. I'm pretty sure he screwed that up at one point too and called it AVF. And he said, we want to say right now, this is never going to be taken away. The Republicans in Alabama have already said this. This is not an issue. Yet again, another lie, but he knows that works. And so we have to be aware of the fact that they are going to campaign on the fact that Republicans are going to take away abortion. It should be a warning, though, because abortions have gone up since Dobbs was released, since the Dobbs decision. Abortions have gone significantly up. This has been the best advertisement for Planned Parenthood. It has put millions of dollars into Democrats' pockets, and he is telling you that is going to be what they run on, and they are going to go to every state that has a ballot initiative and say, if you do not vote for us, you are going to end up with a ban. And you have people on the Republican side saying Trump has to come out with a 15-week ban. I'm telling you, if he does that, that's the end.
That is sobering. Kira, what motivates the right space the way abortion motivates a portion of the left space? Is there anything? Because look, obviously it wasn't all bad on our primary we just had on Super Tuesday at all. We had great things happen in Texas state legislature, school board races, a lot of things like that. But congressionally, it was really bad. It was embarrassing, Kira. I saw you were ranting and raving about it, too. Is there anything that gets the right to the polls the way abortion gets the commies to the polls?
Trump. I mean, yeah, there's no, as far as an issue, I think when it comes, we all know that the Democrat base walks in lockstep. There's not a whole lot of curiosity over there. So it really is a headline culture, for lack of a better term, over on the left. So yeah, they can easily motivate their base just through feelings and emotions. And conservative and Republican voters, to an extent, are a little bit pickier. And we're also just not as passionate, because that's not in the nature of a conservative, really. I mean, we want to go and go to work and earn our paychecks and come home and support our families and spend time with our families. That's exciting for us. And so, yeah, we don't necessarily have our passions as stirred as the left. And that's also because the right doesn't demonize half the country the way that the left does. But what gets Republicans and the right-wing base to the polls, I think we have proven that it is Donald Trump, for better or for worse. Whatever he has harnessed, that's what's getting voters excited and motivated. And I just think it's undeniable, no matter how you feel about him.
Well, and Jesse, I would say one of the things that I would warn folks out there, and I think that I can be a good warning because I lived through the abortion attack in the state of Michigan, and that is that abortion will actually get Republicans to the polls too if they think it's threatened. So if you look at the state of Michigan, there were places where Republicans came out for Republican candidates and they voted for Gretchen Whitmer because she made them believe that if they voted for me, that choice would be taken away from them, even though it was on the ballot. And so that's why I think that people need to understand that the pro-life groups do not have the support that they thought they had. We thought that there was much more support for this. Abortions have gone up. Republicans need to focus on what they can do in legislation to help families out, to help abortions come down in other ways, because right now, going after it legally, just not working.
And I gotta say this, no no national Republican candidate should even be talking about this. When it comes to their desk in the form of an interview or in form of a query, the answer should be at all times, this is not a federal issue. This is an issue that belongs in your state, and that's how President Trump should answer this question every time. Tudor is absolutely right. Abortion's going to be an issue, and Republicans need to prepare for that. But one of the things that candidates running for the House, for Congress, and certainly our presidential candidate needs to do is remind people what the Dobbs decision means, what repealing Roe v. Wade means. It doesn't mean the end of abortion. It just means that this is a decision that will be entrusted to the American people and not to 9 unelected judges. And that's the only answer any Republican should give on this issue at all. This is an issue for the people to decide now. So you decide where you are. Your legislators decide. This is not an issue for the president. The president has absolutely no influence on this issue, and Trump shouldn't give it the time of day.
Tudor, you heard Joe Biden's speech there. How can he possibly win? Because when you're giving a speech, an hour-long speech, and you're focusing on things like junk fees, honestly, it's so transparent, it's laughable. Everyone can see you bring up something like junk fees because you don't have anything else to campaign on. And people don't go vote based on $10 extra when they booked a ticket at Southwest. They just don't vote that way. So how could he possibly win? Because I feel like he can, I just can't see how.
Because Kira made a great point earlier. The majority of the country is not watching this. They're not watching politics until the very last minute. And they're going out there just hearing what they see on, or just after hearing what they've heard on TikTok, what they've heard on social media. They're just getting the feed that is from the things they like. So they're hearing great things from their candidate. And Joe Biden won't go out there. He won't debate. He won't be out there on the world stage, on the national stage. He can't be. He can't function. And so they won't listen to him. And they'll hear the pundits on MSNBC and CNN saying, what an amazing, energetic guy. He's got a historic presidency. He's done amazing things. He's a man of the people. The UAW endorsed him, even though they then came out and said their members won't vote for him. They won't hear that stuff. They will only hear what is pumped into their cell phones, which will come through the form of TikTok. It will come through the form of streaming. It will be phenomenal advertisements. I'll tell you, my daughter, who is 14, through her school site where she had to research a choir question, she was constantly being pumped ads by Barack Obama, who was saying, you need to go vote for my buddy, Joe Biden. And then Joe comes in at the end. I talked to folks on the Trump team and I said, my daughter is getting just hammered with these ads from Barack Obama. And they said, oh, that's funny. Wrong demographic. She's a freshman in high school. I said, you guys don't get it. It's not the wrong demographic. These kids are being pounded with this message constantly. So when they turn 18, they are one of them. And the folks that are already 18, those 18 to 29-year-olds, they are getting fed these messages on social media, on streaming, on their browsers, everywhere you can think of constantly. They never have to see Joe Biden to know that Joe Biden is the one that's going to protect their health care, to know that Joe Biden's going to give them free money, to know that Joe Biden is going to reduce their credit card debt. That's what they're going to see, and that's how he wins unless Republicans get into those spaces and tell them the truth. We've got to educate them.
Jesse, let me interrupt here because Tudor is exactly right. And she's saying what I've been saying on your show for quite a while now, ever since my school board race, which is that Republicans need to be focusing on education. That's where we're going to win, especially the down ballot races. Education, education, education. It's huge. But one of the reasons that it's huge is because we need to start thinking strategically the way that the left has been thinking. They've been educating our students for the last 50 years, just like Tudor said. Her daughter goes in, my daughter, the same thing. She's a public school student. She goes into the classroom. She is constantly bombarded with these messages. My daughter asked me who was on the right side of this Middle East conflict. And I said, well, we're on Israel's side. We support Israel's right to defend themselves. And she was like, are you sure? Because that's not what everyone at school says. And that's not what everyone on TikTok says. She couldn't believe it. She had literally not heard a single competing view on that issue. That's what they're up against. We can't win future voters if we're not willing to educate them in the classroom. How dare somebody be so flippant about a teenager getting these constant messages? That teenager's going to vote someday. Don't you want that vote? We need to be educating our voters now so that when the time comes, they will vote in a way that is more amenable to the American success story. The Democrats have been doing years and they've not.
Yeah. Ladies, thank you so much for your time.